Today, we're going to be doing something a little special. We're going to be turning this into this, and it is going to be amazing. Check this out. We're going to be cooking a steak today, but not just any steak. This is a special steak. This is a dry-aged ribeye steak, 1.5 inches thick. To start off, we're going to be dry brining the steak, which means you are basically letting it sit in the fridge and letting the salt penetrate into the meat overnight to get a nice salty flavor throughout the whole steak. This is actually a really easy process. It just takes a little bit of time. Season your steak heavily on both sides and the edges to let that salt really penetrate through into the meat when you let it rest overnight. You want to place that steak on a cooling rack over a baking tray to let that air circulate throughout the whole steak to let the salt penetrate in from all the edges and all the sides of the steak. The next day, turn your pan to medium-high heat and pour some oil in, and just enough to coat the bottom of your cast iron skillet. If you look at your steak and it has a deep maroon color, that's a sign that the salt penetrated deeply into the meat. Once the oil is hot, place the steak into the frying pan. Now that is a good indication of what it should sound like. This step is not trying to cook it all the way through. You're just trying to get a nice crust on your steak. I like to season my steak with a little bit of freshly ground black pepper, some garlic powder. Remember, we don't need salt because we already salt brined it overnight. After 2 to 3 minutes, flip your steak over. This is a good crust that you should have. This is a pretty simple process. Just keep flipping your steak over until you're happy with the crust. Do not worry about the temperature for right now. Once you're happy with the color of your crust, turn the heat all the way down to low and throw in a little bit of butter, garlic cloves, and a little bit of thyme or rosemary. It's up to you. Now for the fun part. Once it melts, take a spoon and basically put the butter and bring it up on top of the steak to let that hot butter and flavor get into that steak and cook it all the way through. The more you do this, the more cooked your steak will be. So now you should more pay attention to your temperature. Take your steak out about 10 degrees before your wanted temperature and let your steak rest. This will bring up the temperature about 10 to 15 degrees. Oh, remember, place that seasonings on top of the steak, and if you want, might as well just go all out. Pour a little bit of that juice on top of it as well. Makes it even better. I let my steak rest about 10 to 15 minutes. Now, I am happy to say that I did not screw this up. This is just amazing. Once your steak has rested, cut open into pretty much steak heaven and enjoy with your family.